Hey, everybody out there. Welcome to the end of the week Feel Good Friday edition of SportsMemo's MLB Full Count Show. So much to unpack today. Everybody's in action tonight on the MLB slate. And as everyone knows, baseball's still going on, even though NFL came back last night with the Bills and Rams facing off. But we still want to make money on the diamond. And there's still lots of money to be made on the diamond, almost 2 full months of baseball left. And I will be joined today by 2 of my favorite people and 2 of the best baseball minds, but also football minds as well, in the Iceman, Jesse Schule, and family affair stud man, Jeff Michaels, or JM Sports, rocking the old school kit there today. I like that. We won't say it, but we will admire the shirt you have on there. And how are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Chuck.
Yeah, Jesse, it's morning time there right now at this point. But yeah, I figured I have to, if I sit crooked, it looks like Guardian still, right?
Yeah.
I figured I can get away.
Half of the kits and half of the jackets are still good. I think that's part of the reason they picked that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so before we get into the baseball games, I do want to call your attention to a couple of promos we have at both Wager Talk and Sports Memo. There's the Pick Your Team promo. You can get 2, 3, 4, or 5 cappers. You can get a 7-day all access or a 30-day all access. Good now all the way through the weekend till Monday night. You get 10% off of those. Use code PYT10. Not Pretty Young Thing, but Pick Your Team promo 10. You can get all of us, all 3 of us. You can add a couple more on there. Whatever you want to use the acronym PYT for. It's PYT. So don't forget to do that, as well as football. I know these 2 guys and myself have a lot of football going. Probably had some last night. Hopefully started off the season well, or at least better than I did, considering I overthought it and went with the first half play. So without further ado, let's get into some baseball. We have 3 games tonight and some best bets from all 3 of us that involve some of the games we're going to talk about, as well as other games. First one on the slate, though, is let me make sure I don't screw this up. It's D-backs visiting Colorado. Zach Davies is on the mound, one of our favorite guys, as well as another favorite, especially when he's at Coors, German Marquez. Interesting about this is the D-backs are 3rd place in this division now. And there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about with a couple of the managers in our game tonight, but Torey Lovullo doesn't seem like he's getting a lot of traction in Manager of the Year. That's probably Bucks to lose. But boy, should he be considered. They're single digit games out of the wild card. And I find that to be fascinating ahead of the Rockies as they head to Coors tonight for the final series against them this season. And so let's first go over to Jeff and get his thoughts on where the money is the same, even though this game doesn't matter as far as future baseball goes, but money spends the same. And so always don't focus on important games, as quote we say. This is just as good as anything. D-backs and Rockies. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Both these pitchers have been immensely important to their teams recently. The Diamondbacks have won 4 straight Davies starts, and the Rockies have won 3 straight Marquez starts. And one of these streaks has to come to an end tonight. I don't find myself loving either side. I do lean towards the over just because a lot of the trends point me towards the Rockies. But in the last couple of weeks, like you said, Arizona's almost got themselves back in the playoff contention. They're 28-37 on the road this year, and they're just 8-18 against the division on the road. But 6 of those 8 wins have come in the last 11 games. And Colorado does have a pretty good record at home against teams under 500. Over the last 2 years, they're 43-22. But, I mean, this is a pretty low total by comparison when you're looking at Coors Field. They're putting up 5.8 runs per game at home, and they put up 8 runs in back-to-back games over their last 2. And in the last 9, when they've done that to follow that up at home, they're putting up 6.5 runs per game. So trends tell me Colorado. What I've seen recently tells me Arizona. So I'm going to lean towards the over in this one.
Yeah, I like that advantage angle there of just getting a 10. it's really interesting. One of the things I didn't bring up, and we'll do it right before we get to Jesse, talk about, I'm wearing a Seinfeld shirt. A lot of my life is Seinfeld based. Even Steven was a big thing on Seinfeld. These two teams are 8-8 straight up. I think they're 5-5 in Colorado. I think they're 4-4 in Arizona. Wild stuff. Hard to find an angle. I understand where Jeff's coming from. What do you have on this, Jesse?
Well, at first glance, I look at this game and I think, wow, I love the Rockies. I'm a bit of a fan of the Rockies. I think they're one of the more underrated home teams in baseball. They tend to win a lot more home games than you'd expect them to, considering their poor overall record. Zach Davies going for Arizona has been a fade for me early in the season. Like to go against Zach Davies. So my first inclination was let's take Colorado. But as I dig into it, you look at Davies' numbers. He's been killing it lately with a 2.79 ERA in his last 5 starts. His numbers against Colorado, 1.65 ERA in 3 starts versus the Rockies this year. And the way the Diamondbacks are playing, Marquez, on the other hand, going for Colorado, 2-5, 6.09 ERA in 14 home starts. And Colorado is the slight favorite. I'm looking at Arizona on the runs in this game.
Nice take. Okay, so a couple of different angles there for everyone to think about. I have a play on this later, so I will just say, Jeff's saying there are going to be some runs scored. Jesse's looking at something we should really consider. He likes the Rockies, and he is going against them. I always think that's a really interesting angle, and so we will leave it at that until a little bit later from now, and we'll move on to a similar situation in the American League here, where the Red Sox are going to Baltimore and Camden, and they find themselves behind the Orioles in the division. And the Orioles, so I talked about the Diamondbacks being less than 10 games out of the wild card. The Orioles are less than 5 games out of the wild card. And Brandon Hyde, I think, hopefully will have a little more success than Torey Lovullo. There's always going to be better choices. I think Aaron Judge has lost his way out of that consideration. It's a really tough decision here when obviously, we're going to talk about this, but it's Brian Bello facing Austin Voth tonight. The Orioles are favored. It's pretty interesting because we always talk about the Orioles. And when we talk about them, we talk about how unbelievable they are as a dog, winning 75 to 80% of the time on the run line as a dog. But as a favorite tonight at home against a team, it makes you really dig deep into the numbers. And this time I'll start off with Jesse and see what he thinks with Orioles. I know he's loved the Orioles, and him and Mejia have had a back and forth on just blindly betting them for the remainder of the season. Where do you fall on them with them being a favorite tonight?
Well, I think we've all been following the Orioles since the All-Star break, but I got bad news for you guys. I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's time maybe to think about jumping off the Orioles. Losing 3 of 4 games at home to the Blue Jays, I think, could potentially take some of the wind out of their sails. And I think their chances of actually making a wild card spot are no longer looking really that possible to me. Even though it's only 4 games, just the way that the teams in front of them are playing, I think they're right about now is a time where you come to terms with the fact that they're not going to be in the playoffs. However, as Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friends, because tonight they're playing Boston, and Boston's 2-8 in their last 10 road games, and they're not doing anything positive at all. Bello, the pitcher for Boston, young guy, probably got some talent. He hasn't showed it on the road, though. He's 0-1 with an 8.31 ERA in just 3 road starts. It's a small sample size, but he is facing an Orioles team that has played pretty well up until they stunk it up against the Blue Jays. Voth going for Baltimore, not the greatest numbers. I mean, his numbers don't stand out at all, but if you look at the wins and losses, 16 appearances for Baltimore, and the Orioles are 11-5 in those games. That's pretty strong. And as far as Baltimore being a favorite, for me, when a team's minus 119, they might as well be a dog. I mean, that's a pretty short line. Baltimore at home against a struggling Red Sox team, I'll take it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I did say they're favored, but right, what's home field advantage in Camden? And so you are probably correct on that. I know Jeff has a lot of opinions on this game, and so I want him to combat what Jesse said and see if he thinks that he's ready to hop off of the second half Orioles and whether or not he thinks their chances are also really diminishing quickly.
I think diminishing quickly it is a good way to put it. I am gonna save my sides analysis on this game for the best bet segment at the end. But a little even look at the total. I was looking, you take a look at these pitchers, and Brian Bello has actually gone under the total in 4 of his 6 starts. Granted, like Jesse said, it's a small sample size. He's only got 6 starts this season, but he's got a 6.33 ERA, and he's still trending towards the under. Boston's 6-16 over and under after a game where they scored and allowed 3 or less runs. And Baltimore's 5-16 over under at home after putting up 4 or less hits in the last 3 years. But you look at the other side, you got Austin Voth on the mound, who I will have a little more to say about later. But he's 5-1 over under in his last 6 at home, and he's 7-4 over under in his last 11 overall. So he's actually had pretty good numbers, and that's coming from a lot of run support that he's gotten in his start. Baltimore's 12-5 in the last 17 after they put up 1 or less run in their last game. And they're bouncing back and putting up nearly 6 runs in the game to follow. And Boston's kind of done the same thing. They've gone over the total in 6 straight games after putting up 1 or less run, and both these teams were held to that amount in their previous games. So I do think they bounce back, and I think both teams get a couple runs. So I'm looking at the over, but I'll give you a little more on the sides later when we get to that end segment for you.
Yeah, excellent outlook. So we got a little bit of Jeff on the total here, as well as we're going to hear about the side as well. I probably am, just being redundant here. I'm a pretty big Austin Voth guy. Jesse brought it up a little bit. They're 9-4 in his starts. When he starts, they win. When he starts and they're playing someone, he did lose to the Astros. He did lose to the Blue Jays when Verlander and Stripling were starting, or at least the team lost. Otherwise, it's been pretty solid. And so, it's just really hard to figure out what to do with the Red Sox, period. But Jesse brought up a lot of good points about whether or not you can just automatically fade them. So let's get into our third game here, which is the Jeff Michaels special. So we'll go ahead and start with him as the top 2 teams in the AL Central. We're always talking AL Central. Talked a little bit of A's, White Sox the other day. White Sox are really turning on the offense and putting pressure on the Guardians, who lead the Twins by a game and a half in the AL Central. There are about 27 or 28 games left, and these 2 teams play each other 8 more times. So this is going to be a really big photo finish here. Cal Quantrill on the mound, who I think Jeff will probably – him and I are always butting heads. I mean, we're not butting heads, but I'm a Cal Quantrill guy, and I think Jeff would like to find a better starter for his rotation. Dylan Bundy on the mound for the Twins at Target Field tonight. So let's get Jeff's opinion on whether or not the Guardians can start to slam this door shut. This would be a really big 3-game series if they were to take 2 or even 3 of these to make way with the 5 games coming up that are going to be more at home as well.
Yeah, they got 3 of the last 4. The last time they played, they did have a doubleheader. They lost the first game of the doubleheader and then won the next 3 to follow. So they took 3 out of 4 last time. And, I'll tell you, I don't think those conversations have happened in a little while, just because the two times now that I thought you don't bet against Cal Quantrill this season is when he's playing the division and just in the second half of the season in general. I mean, against the division, the Guardians are 7-2 in his 9 starts, even with his 4.27 ERA. They've won 6 out of his last 7 against the division, and they're 10-2 in his starts in the second half of this year. But if you look at just his last 11, they're 10-1. I mean, the Guardians have been on a pretty impressive run. They're 9-0 when they have at least 1 day of rest, and Cleveland's got a pretty good record bouncing back off of a one-run loss, especially when it's against the division Minnesota just has struggled to put things together when it matters. I mean, they're 2-6 in their last 8 games. They beat New York yesterday, but they're putting up just 3 runs per game and they're allowing over 5.5. So they've struggled against the division, especially off a win recently. And my sides play, you may see where I'm leaning, but my sides play is actually my top play over at SportsMemo for today. So not like I didn't give enough away and probably which way I'm headed towards, but I'll leave a little bit of excitement for my play over there on SportsMemo today. So
absolutely. So basically what he's saying is use the promotion, go over there, get his package, Jesse's package, pick up mine. I also have tennis in there because I'm a nut job, and you're going to get a lot of stuff, and you get a really good deal at 10% off there. So Cal Quantrill, speaking of which, and we'll get to Jesse here in a second, when he has a bad game, the game his last start was against the Mariners. It was pretty bad. His ERA and FIP were pretty bad. And when he has had or ERA, I guess, that's been pretty bad, he's bounced back really well, and so that's an additional factor. Let's get Jesse's opinion on, I'm sure, his favorite division in all of sports, the AL Central, right?
It's like the division that nobody wants to win. You got the White Sox in the mix, and nobody seems to want to jump out in front and run with it. It's destined to go down to the wire here, but I mean, this looks like a pretty even matchup to me. It was really difficult for me to pin down a side, so I'm going to focus on the total. I'm looking at Quantrill, who I think has the better overall body of work between the two pitchers, but he's really strong numbers lately, 3-0, 2.17 ERA in his last 5 starts. Bundy, even better, 2-1, 1.80 ERA in his last 5 starts. And he's been far better at home than he has been on the road, 4-1, 2.8 ERA at home. But all the trends and the fact that the Cleveland is not that strong offensively, their bats have been fairly quiet. And with the poor offense comes a lot of under trends. The under is 18-5 in Cleveland's last 23 versus right-handers, and the under is 22-6-1 in Cleveland's last 29 overall. The Twins have gone under in 7 of their last 8 in game 1 of a series. And with both these two pitchers being quite hot at the moment, and with such a big game for the division, and I think a low-scoring game, something like a 3-2 game is what I'm expecting.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about the totals in the 7s, getting 7s or 7 and the hook, and yeah, it's a twist my arm is the comment I use a lot of times. You're going to get a pitching matchup with a couple of what are mostly subpar offenses, and you get that hook as well, 3-2, because you can also cash at 4-3 here. So that's the round table games. Let's move into our best bet segment here. But before we do, real fast, I'll give both of you a chance to let me know what you got going on with football, as well as whatever else might be coming up this weekend. And don't forget, check out all the promos. The pick your team promo is going to be the best possibility to get everybody. You can mix and match and get all kinds of different opportunities to bet. There are some issues Jesse brought up with things being postponed for a little while, period of time, EPL especially, some UFC. But there's going to be a lot of football, a full day of football tomorrow, first day of NFL football on Sunday. So lots of opportunity. And so let's get into our best bets now. We'll head over to the Iceman, Jesse Schule. I want to hear what he's got going on other than no EPL, and hear about his best bet for tonight's slate when we're going to go 3-0.
Well, I got a fully loaded football card, 5 college games, 5 NFL games ready to go for the weekend. And I was looking at the leaderboards at SportsMemo, and I saw my name there. I'm not even at the top of the leaderboards. I'm on there, but the 9-1, 90% with NFL, man, that looks good. That looks outstanding. I like the looks of that. I don't like my chances of maintaining that winning percentage for the rest of the season, but let's keep it high anyways. So best bet, I am looking at the Seattle Mariners as a home dog against Atlanta. Of course, Atlanta has been making a strong push to hunt down the New York Mets, and they are right there. And everybody's loving Atlanta these days, but the Mariners have been hot themselves. They're 19-6 in their last 25 games overall, but during that span, they're 22-3 against the spread if they're getting a run and a half. And Robbie Ray, the Cy Young winner last year, on fire, 4-0, 1.41 ERA in his last 5 starts. And you got the veteran Charlie Morton going for Atlanta. Not so great on the road, 2-4, 5.24 ERA in a dozen road starts. And Atlanta has struggled against the Mariners. They've lost 6 of their last 7 versus Seattle. And yeah, I just like Seattle here at home at this price, getting them as a slight dog. I think they're playing as good as anybody right now, and Robbie Ray is certainly pitching better than Charlie Morton has on the road. So Seattle.
All right. So the Iceman says the Braves are going to take their first September loss tonight as Robbie Ray takes down Uncle Charlie, and I like that play. I'm not going to lie to you. Getting it at plus money, even at small plus money, is pretty solid value. So take those M's tonight. He may not be just north of Seattle anymore, but I think his heart is still with the Mariners. And, he's gone far away into the middle of the night, but he's sticking with those boys. So now let's see what Jeff has on tap. Also, I think his best bets from a game that we discussed earlier, and let's hear what else he has going on. I know that he started off football super hot. Maybe no one could start as hot as 9-1, but I think he only has a 1 in the loss column as well. So let's hear what he has going on this weekend as well as his best bet.
Yeah, you look at both the football stats combined, college football and pro football. Last 7 days, I'm number 1 on this site, 5-1-1, and I'm a perfect 5-0-1. Plays 3 units or higher. I got at least 4 plays for you tomorrow on the college football card. Packages up and loaded on SportsMemo. I do have 1 or 2 more that have still caught my eye that I'm still deciding if we're going to pull the trigger. But right now you're looking at under $5 per play, and you may get 6 plays tomorrow too for the college football card. So we're looking to continue that run. But for best bet segment tonight, Dr. Chuck, you mentioned those games that Austin Voth lost earlier, and I'll tell you, there's one thing that all of those games have in common. Actually, 2 things that all of those games have in common. None of them were at home, and none of them were at night. Austin Voth in his starts this season, Baltimore 7-0 in his home starts, and they're 7-0 in his night starts. And they're 3-1 overall in his 4 starts against the AL East, where he has an ERA of just 1.59. And Boston struggled as much as anybody in their respective divisions this season. They're 18-39 against the AL East, and they've yet to win a game against the division where Brian Bellows started on the mound. Tampa Bay's won 7 of the last 11 against Boston, and they're 4-2 at home this season. Baltimore 16-5 as a favorite. You mentioned it earlier. They're 16-5 as a favorite when the line's between -100 and -150. And when that happens, when they're at home, they're 14-4 and they're winning by nearly 2 runs per game. So Baltimore's 7-2 after a loss. They put up 1 or less runs, so they're bouncing back. I mentioned that earlier in the over/under. And they're 10-3 in the last 13 at home versus the division against a loss in general. So they're bouncing back from those games. And I do think that the time has come that they have to accept they're not going to make the playoffs. But I don't think that run stops tonight with Austin Voth on the mound. So my best bets, give me Baltimore.
Yeah, I love it. I probably gave it away a little bit in just responding to your analysis that I am not on this show to advocate you just see a guy and you bet it. I don't see Cal Quantrill and I immediately grab myself a Guardians ticket. I don't see Austin Voth and grab myself an Orioles ticket. You have to do a little bit more work than that. Do your due diligence. But
you don't see Davies and automatically fade him either.
Exactly. And now Jesse brings up my best bet. And I'll just go ahead and hammer this in. I don't back Zach Davies very often. It doesn't matter if he's a Cub. It doesn't matter what team he's playing for. If he's on the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I talked about it a little bit. It doesn't make sense. There's not any good sense about it. If Torey Lovullo had a solid roster and a front office and GM that wanted to do something, I don't know if they were maybe going to get there with La Russa and the way that was all going to work before they dismantled that. This guy obviously knows what to do. And here's my challenge to you. I am just going to assume that you know Ketel Marte. Maybe you don't. Can you name anybody else that's going to be penciled into that 9-man roster tonight? It's phenomenal. And you could say the same thing about the Orioles, but a lot of people know a couple of the Orioles. Most people know Cedric Mullins. Most people have heard of Santander. Obviously, they probably knew Mancini before that. I mean, this is a top to bottom who's who. The Dodgers are loaded. The Padres are loaded. The Giants are loaded. You could name 70% of the guys if you're not a baseball fan. The Diamondbacks don't have any of that, and they're 9.5 games out of the wild card. They're going to Coors tonight with Zach Davies on the mound. They get to face Marquez. This is basically, I could not even do anything except tell you that the VMI tonight against Marquez's four-seamer, he's a tight pitcher, throws a majority of four-seamers. Their VMI is a plus 17. You don't get that very often. Basically, what that means, as far as the ADI and VMI indexes go, every fastball that Marquez throws is going to look like a beach ball, but he's not going to know it. And they've already done really well in this spot in the past. Zach Davies has unfortunately gotten the Rockies in series openers regularly this season, and it hasn't always worked out well, but he hasn't gotten the same VMI. The Diamondbacks' last 3 just this season, they've scored 9 runs, 6 runs, 9 runs in this VMI situation. In course, you're always going to have that possibility. It will even out as the series goes on, and there's a good chance that their best situation is tonight. It'll be decent tomorrow, not nearly as good on Sunday, but it's all based on whether or not the pitcher is a four-seam fastball pitcher, and Marquez is. Davies is nothing to write home about, and he can get scored on. It's just the Diamondbacks should score more runs, and you're getting plus money. And like I said, these two teams have played so even, Steven. They're 8-8. I misspoke earlier. It's 5-5 in Arizona, 3-3 in Colorado. I think that goes to 4-3 for the Diamondbacks tonight, and I just love the price. I love fading Marquez. Davies has actually been better. He's not an auto fade, and I think it's just, with the Mariners at slightly plus money, the Orioles at barely minus money, and the Diamondbacks at slightly plus money, it's a pretty good ticket tonight. And if you were to even tie those 3 together, you'd have a pretty solid parlay play for this wonderful panel to go 3-0. With that best bet, I'll just real quick get into, it's the U.S. Open. I'll plug U.S. Open and tennis any chance I can get. Probably going to have a play tonight in the men's semifinal. There's one going on right now. We have a play now for All Access. Hopefully you were already on that. We already have a couple baseball plays out, including a play in the Giants game at 4. But the only American left in the U.S. Open is Francis Tiafoe tonight. And unfortunately, he will take on the best player in the field in Carlos Alcaraz. It's going to be an uphill battle for an American to win the U.S. Open. Probably have a play on that. As well as I have a 4-team package for NFL already. And I only have 3 up right now for college. But like Jeff said, there's a lot of opportunity, and I probably am going to end up releasing a play tonight in the Louisville game as well. It's overreaction weekend, like Jeff's dad will tell you. Unbelievable possibilities to hammer when 1 week has happened and everybody has done things that you didn't expect. Everyone in the public is going to overreact, and there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of that. So check us out. Don't forget to look at promos, look at all access packages. Jesse's got a bunch of football, 9-1. Jeff's got a bunch of football, also with not quite 9-1, but I think he said he's 5-1. I mean, it's hard to beat, and you can't get better deals than you can get at SportsMemo and Wager Talk. So don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. You'll get to notice every time we're going to have more and more shows going, and that's our MLB show for today. So on behalf of my 2 favorites in Jeff and Jesse, just probably need some sleep. Me and Jeff are still, it's still the middle of Feel Good Friday for us. So Jesse's already on to Saturday and ready to get excited for some football, and let's get some winners tonight on the MLB slate. And good luck this weekend, guys. Take care.